Mr. Kinský, just imagine that you are speaking to someone who's never met you. Who are you? If you can explain a little bit about yourself and your family background.
Well, I'm happy to welcome you here in Žďár nad Sázavou at the border between Bohemia and Moravia. And I'm especially happy today because it's the first day that the storks have come back from Africa. They're starting to fly around the castle.
Really?
So it's the beginning of hope towards spring after we had a dark winter. I'm Constantin Kinský, I'm 63 years old, happily married 37 years, two wonderful boys, a wonderful daughter-in-law, and we're expecting any hour now our first grandchild, so that's also a good day. That's why the storks came, probably. I've been working in investment banking for half of my professional life, and I'm still active in the financial circles, doing management strategy for another half, and since restitution of our family property here, I was helping my father since '94, and in 2008 I took over from my father to manage our family property. And otherwise I'm active in forestry with the Association of Czech Private Forestry Owners to help develop the forestry industry and the wood industry in Czech Republic in a sustainable way. And I also, just for the fun, for the karma, I coach high-tech startups. So that's, in short, what I do.
You were born and raised in France, right? What was your connection to Czechoslovakia before 1989?
Well, my father was Czech, or Czechoslovak at the time. He managed to escape only in '58, so he lived through the hard years. And my mother was of Georgian origin, and they got married in Paris. I was born in France, so it's interesting that we had very strong ties always with both the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia and Georgia. My father always spoke Czech with us at home, so we had some kind of domestic Czech, but at least something. And the story and the sufferings of Central Europe and Georgia under the Soviet occupation, and before that under Nazi occupation, was always present in our education, discussion, meetings with people from all over Central Europe and so forth. So very strong ties, but always, in terms of where do we come from, of our roots. And suddenly I was able to come here in 76 or 77 as a boy, I can't remember exactly year. So under the communist regime still, but suddenly after the Velvet Revolution, everything was possible again and open again, so we immediately were very regular here, because it's funny. The country you come from is not only the country where you are born. You inherit the land that defines you, not only from the fact that you are born in a certain place, but from your parents. And that's why the first generation of immigrants, my father, my mother were in foreign countries, France, they come with their own country. So they never feel lost. Whereas the second generation, like me, we are from a country that has been lost. So we are always a bit lost. I feel French, I feel Czech, I feel Georgian. That's why I truly feel European, but at the same time, you always have that nagging feeling that you need to cultivate your roots in order to know who you are. So a bit of a mixed experience, but a very rich experience.
Do you remember the first time you came to Czechoslovakia under communism? I mean, what was it like? What kind of feeling did you have?
I was there as a teenager, just after the Helsinki Convention, so I was something like 14 years old. I was alone, came by train. At the border, they work all the train at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They work all the train up, and the border guards were controlling everybody, and with the Kalashnikov in the stomach. and the attack dog sniffing at my privates, which was a bit uncomfortable. And I pretended I did not speak Czech, but I could hear what they were saying, you know, you're going to pay, young man, we know, young boy, you know who we are, and so forth. It was really unpleasant. So when I arrived in Prague, a very good old and delightful old friend of my father, Colonel Clement, who was very First Republic, you know, very good Czech, very elegant, very decent man, had come for me at the railway station and saw that I was a bit shaken. So he gave me a becherovka. I was 14, had not slept, I was rather stressed. And it was 7 o'clock in the morning. That was terrible. My first experience with becherovka. And from that, I really understood that unless you live in a totalitarian regime, you can never completely understand what it means. And that has helped me understand a bit where people come from here, what's the experience, beyond everything that we were told as kids in Paris, to understand a bit the people, but also to understand that I cannot judge. I cannot fully understand, and therefore respect the history of people who had to survive.
So your father had contacts, I mean, during the communist era?
Oh, still? Yes, there were regular visitors because he was in immunology, reproductive immunology, so there was regular visits from all over the world, and in particular Central Europe or Czechoslovakia, of researchers who visited us, including Professor Hašek, who helped my father in the dark days. Hašek was from that generation of romantic communists who believed truly that it would be a good thing for humanity. He was a great professor of reproductive immunology, saw that my father was left alone, could not study or could not work. So he took him under her protection and enabled him to do reproductive immunology. Many other people, Czechs had emigrated in Israel and so forth. And I remember one day we had dinner. I was a teenager. There was dinner at home, and around the table we had English, Scots, Israeli, Czechs, Austrians, Italians, all in the immunology world. And they were all talking about the fact that their fathers or grandfathers had fought at Monte Cassino, but on different sides. And here we were around the round table. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think you once mentioned how you and your father first crossed the border after the fall of communism. Yes. Can you retell the story? I think it's a great story.
So when in late 1989, when things started to really develop across the Iron Curtain, my mother was at the French embassy in Vienna for atomic energy, and my father was just retired, so they were close and available. And in January 1990, when the Velvet Revolution really won, was our first trip together with my father to the Czech Republic from Vienna. So I was driving, we were heading for Žďár and Chlumec and Prague. I was driving and we were talking in the car and it was joyful, and as we were getting closer to the frontier, the conversation sort of died away. And so we stopped at the frontier, turned the windows, at the times it was manual, gave our passports to the guard who 2 weeks before would have shot at us, who looked at the passports, you're coming back, this is great, welcome, and saluted. So I drove on into Czechoslovakia, and I stopped after 300 meters and said, this was so great, let's do it again. And we turned around, said, you're leaving already? No, it was so good, we want to do it. So they saluted again, and so we did it twice.
What kind of feeling was it for you?
It still is a very strong feeling. I don't understand the concept of frontiers inside Europe. When I cross frontiers, we are French-born, French-educated. I need the sea at least once a year. And my wife, delightful one, who has accepted to join me here, is French. We need the sea. So we go to Brittany once a year. And when we drive from Žďár to the Finistère, the end of the world, Finistère, in Brittany, we truly feel, and I truly feel, I'm driving through my country. And there are various regions. Some are called Bohemia, some are called Saxony, some are called Germany, some are called France or Alsace. It's one country. And the fact that we don't have to stop at the frontier, maybe we slow down a bit, and there's a guy that's maybe watching us or not, is a tremendous feeling once you have experienced what I did in 76, 77, of what a true frontier in a totalitarian regime can be. So I really feel like a European.
Now, obviously, the Kinský family has played such an important role in Czech history. Your grandfather, if I remember correctly, was trying to help Mr. Beneš, the president, to assert, that the Czech families are not all for Germans, etc. How do you build on that? How do you work on that? How do you feel about this responsibility that your family has to this nation, and what do you do about it?
It ties back to a word that is interesting because it's ambiguous, and that's the word legacy. People sometimes think that legacy is about conserving the past, and that's wrong. Legacy is not about protecting the past, it's projecting the future based on certain values. So one of those values that is very strong in our families is local roots, the loyalty to our local roots. And that's one of the reasons why my grandfather initiated this declaration of the Czech aristocracy of loyalty to the Czechoslovak Republic in the context of the preparation and then the realization of the Munich Treaty, which was a betrayal of Czechoslovakia by the Western its Western allies. That's also my other grandfather on my mother's side. He was Georgian, left Georgia, pushed away by the Red Army in 1921. Was an officer in the French Foreign Legion because he was Georgian, so being foreign. And he fell in El Alamein, fighting the Nazis, the Germans, at the time where the Russians and the Soviets were fighting on our side. So he had left because of the Soviets, and he was now fighting with the Soviets against the Nazis. So it shows how complex history is, how ambiguous history is, and how careful we should be to judge ex post, and therefore also how important it is to focus on the values. What do you fight for? Sometimes you have to fight with weapons. Sometimes you have to fight by doing the right thing in your normal life. But you have to be very careful what the deep values of what you do are.
What was your experience with the Czechoslovak first and then Czech authorities when you were reclaiming your property here?
It was very easy. It's a process, there's lots of legal work, but it was very easy because I think everybody understood that giving the country back to its lawful owners, whether it was a shop owner who owned a bakery or a flat that was in your family or a business, forest or a ruined castle, was irrelevant. What was important there was strong and still is strong political consensus that we should give our country back to our citizens. So I would say that socially technically it was a lot of hard work, but socially it was very easy. Economically, it was and still is a lot of work to put it back together. Because the first things that the communists did is that the whole property was one of the first to be nationalized in March 1948, among other things because they knew that my family was very, very pro-democratic, had signed a declaration against the Nazis, which for the communists was a sign that they were Democrats and therefore enemies. And the first thing the communists did was to break everything into small pieces. this part of the forest here, this part of the forest under a different administration. Same for the ponds, for the arable land, and the castle was left in large part in disrepair. So to put it all back together, give it the sense of a unity and making it work together beyond the fact that you have to reconstruct it, was already a lot of work.
I suppose you indicated it, why it is important for you, but you've had a successful career in finance. Why was it worth to you to start, taking care of this chateau and all the land and all the other properties?
Yeah, 3.5 hectares of roofs in disrepair. It's true. I could have lived a much easier, more comfortable, maybe even richer, certainly richer life if I had stayed in investment banking in France. For my wife, it would have been an even more comfortable thing than moving in a completely unknown country in the middle of nowhere, for quote unquote, as she is French. But at the end of the day, this is where life makes sense. If I had stayed in France as an investment banker, I would still be a cog in a machine doing something that somebody else can do in place of me, and with a marginal impact on what's happening to my country. Here, whatever we do, if we try to do it right, we change the country. We have an opportunity to bring Czech Republic back to where it belongs, which is the heart of Europe. We are here at a place where we have 2 water springs that are a few hundred meters away from each other. One flows into the Danube, so southeast, and the other one flows into the Elbe, so northwest. We are truly at the center of Europe. It's not Eastern Europe, center of Europe, and we try to do what needs to be done in terms of sustainable management, of promotion of innovation, restoration, and so forth, to bring this country back to where it belongs historically, which is the heart of Europe.
Many European countries, I think, have strong traditions of family businesses. How was it for you here in Czechia? I mean, do you think, that the tradition is still here? Did people help you, or did you, I don't know, did you meet some resentment perhaps even?
On the contrary, this is a very entrepreneurial country, very entrepreneurial, has always been. Vysočina in particular is extremely entrepreneurial. Reminds me of Brittany. These are regions which are, in terms of climate, of natural environment, are quite tough, very lively but quite tough. And therefore, either you don't make it and you're a drunkard, or you make it and you're an entrepreneur and you build things. And Žďár is sort of a mini Silicon Valley, Czech mini Silicon Valley. Very entrepreneurial, high-tech, exporting all over the place. I know in India, in China, in the US, in Latin America. And from that perspective, family businesses are extremely important. There are, 1.5 million family business in Czech Republic. They are the ones who are creating most of the new jobs of innovation, cultivating entrepreneurship, and living on the tradition of giving back some of your hard-earned money to the region where you work. Social responsibility is part of the DNA of family businesses, in particular in Czech Republic, where you have lots of very discreet sponsors who do the right thing. And it makes me a bit angry that whenever there's a foreign investor coming, and I think it's good, it's really important that foreign investors have and will continue to invest in Czech Republic. But whenever a big foreign investor comes, Amazon comes, all the politicians and the bureaucrats are standing and saluting and kowtowing and doing whatever they need. And this is great, but they should do the same for us. I'm not asking for a special regime. I don't want more than others. But family businesses deserve the same attention, and we don't get that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm one of the co-founders with VŠE, which is our economic university in Prague, the best, founded the Center for Family Businesses. It's really important, especially now, because most of the family businesses were restituted or created in the early 90s, and it's a time of generation change. Those family businesses will either be sold, which is a pity, or passed on to the next generation. So very important.
You know, one of the first laws that were passed by the Czechoslovak parliament in 1918 was a law that forbade the use of aristocratic titles. Do you think that the Czech society as such has respect for its own aristocracy?
You know, I'm from what the Czechs call dělnická třída. I'm from the working class. My father was repairing things in camps and in prison and on construction sites. So we start and we end all the same. This question of titles and not titles is only a historic thing, which has its values but its limitations. And I don't feel that there is any kind of animosity. I have a problem on the opposite side, that sometimes people project a fantasy on us, their own fantasy on us. For example, they think that historical families are conservative. It's wrong. Those historical families were successful because they were always modern. They were always at the forefront of their country. They were always the first to invest in new ideas, in new technology, whether it was together with the monks, actually, the monasteries, in investing in smelters or water mills in the Middle Ages, in glass manufacturing for my family in Bohemia. And we, as a business now, invest in high-tech. We use high-tech, we use artificial intelligence and satellite imagery to identify the trees that have been attacked by the bark beetle, to take them out of the forest and protect the forest. This is applying artificial intelligence to the most conservative business in the world, which is forestry. So the relationship to those historical families is a mix of our own difficulty as Czech to reassure ourselves that we have a right to exist as a nation state, our mixed feelings towards our past, some of it is good, some of it is not that good, and a bit of fantasy that we have to fight a bit against, that some people, think the old days were good and what's happening now is bad, and that's wrong. We are families that embrace the present and want to build a future. Long answer.
Well, it seems to me that on the one hand, Czechs have this tendency not to like anyone who's an aristocrat. On the other hand, we have TV documentary series about your families, and people like to watch it. Is that the fantasy that you referred to, perhaps?
I don't think that the Czechs don't like aristocrats. Some Czechs sometimes don't like successful people. We are a very egalitarian society. You see that in, for example, the spread of salaries is much wider in Western Europe, in the same companies, as in the Czech Republic. We are egalitarian. I think that's more the heart of it than a specific problem with aristocrats. All the more because people know that the representatives of those historical families suffered a lot under both the Nazi and the communist regime. And those who are here, whether they stayed or they came back, are trying to do a good job as a service to the country. I don't feel at all any animosity.
We are here at this chateau. You organized Correspondance, this international festival of dance, or your wife especially does that. You do a lot of cultural events here. Why do you do that? Why not just I don't know, create a golf course or something and make the chateau a hotel or something and make money on it?
Because we're romantic idiots. In Czech, we say that coffins do not have pockets. What you do has to have meaning. We focus on making money. And then what? Then what? You die. You don't take your money with you. You're dead. You have nothing. The only thing you have is what you've left, what you've given away. Anything that you do not give is lost. That's the truth of life. So that's what we try to live. If I don't, not being that romantic, we try to make sure that what we have serves a purpose. That the work we do with natural resources like forestry, water, soil is sustainable, so we can pass it on to the next generation in a better state than we have received it, while making use of it to live on it, because we have to make a living. That the cultural heritage that we have, that we are custodian of, we're not owners, we're custodian, we're stewards, serves a purpose for society. Zámek, which means castle, actually castle also has the same origin, means closing. We don't want to close the zámek or the castle, we want to open it so that it serves a purpose, that there is local community life here, that people feel that it's their zámek, their castle as well. At the same time, it's not only romantic idiocy, it's also economic sense, that things that do not pay do not survive. So part of our job is to ensure that this huge negative equity, this huge loss, huge investments that we have to make will become profitable one day, so that the walls pay for themselves. We'll never make a huge profit from all these cultural monuments. We might not even make a profit at all, but at least we try to work so that it's not loss-making for the future generations, while serving a purpose. And then the question is, what purpose? And our philosophy is that life is change. And change is a combination of what part of the past you want to continue and what part of the past you want to change. You want to evolve. So it's a combination of sustainability and creativity. And if you look at what we do here, we do both at the same time. When working with natural resources or reconstructing the cultural heritage, we try to do it in a sustainable way. And when we look at the programs, whether it's forestry with the use of research and artificial intelligence and all that, or whether it's the Festival Correspondance, all the artists in residence here and all the programs we have for children and so forth, it's to promote innovation. And for our country, is this useful for the Czech Republic? For our country, if we don't manage our natural resources, which is one of the pillars of the success of the Czech Republic, in a sustainable way, we're dead. And if we don't invest in creativity, which in school it's better, but it's not really what it should be. If we don't promote creativity in our kids and in our companies, we will continue to put together cars that will be invented by a German, a Japanese, a French, an Italian. It's stupid. We're a nation of inventors. For 50 years, we were forbidden to have our own opinions. We need to rebuild our ability to have our own opinions and be creative. So sustainability and creativity.
I was just going to ask you, how do you see Czechia in present-day Europe? Are there things that make you unhappy about Czechia, or is Czechia doing fine?
No, and yes. It's not doing fine because it's doing fine. What I mean is that this is a country that is very much underestimated. It's a wonderful country with lots of potential, wonderful people, great talent on engineering, building, great entrepreneurship, wonderful to live in. But because we have done so well, because unemployment has been below 3% for decades and is now something like 4%, basically mostly nothing, we feel that we're doing good and we're not investing enough in the long-term changes we need as a country. And I mean in particular, not so much the physical infrastructure. Yes, we need to invest in physical infrastructure, in particular in transportation, but in the mental infrastructure, the judicial system, the educational system, the overall, our ability as a country to have an articulate strategy that everybody, or at least 2/3 of the country shares and works on, that promotes innovation, ensures that more value added stays in this country. If you take forestry, for example, forest is over 1/3 of our land. It's very important. Lots of people are employed in the forestry and wood sector. It has taken anywhere between 80 and 250 years to grow a tree, depending on the species. And we saw it, and we sell the planks to Germany and Austria, and we buy furniture from them. That makes me so angry, so angry. It should be part of our strategy. It's on paper that it's part of our strategy, but it's not happening, that we make sure that those forests, those trees that have been nurtured for generations, create value here. That's why, for example, we have invested in the local heating, municipal heating unit nearby, because it was heating with oil, gas oil, and gas, and we took the oil out, the fuel out, and replaced it with wood chips, so that the half of the wood chips that we take out of the forest, we put back into the soil in the forest, so to nurture the forestry soil, and the other half we burn close, a couple of kilometers, so that the value stays here. And we don't need to import oil from Arab countries or gas from Russia to heat our homes and generate electricity. That's what we should do. So, wonderful country, but we need to have a more long-term perspective and a strategy to define what we want to be.
You've been here for more than 30 years now, right, in Czechia. How has the society changed, if it has changed?
It has changed a lot. I remember when I came under the communist regime, and even in the 90s, nobody looked you in the eyes. There was this joke that it's a bit, I'm half Czech, so I can make that joke about myself. The difference between an extrovert and a Czech extrovert and a Czech introvert. The Czech introvert looks at his shoes, the Czech extrovert looks at your shoes. Terrible joke. That was true under the communist regime. Everybody was very careful, and it was still true culturally in the 90s. That has completely changed. And we are much more confident in ourselves, much more open, much more able to be self-critical. So yes, those things have changed radically. Some things have not changed enough to my taste. I would mention two. One is that to my taste, we take too easily for granted that whatever the system is now, we cannot change. There's a law that is stupid. Let's change the law. Never gonna happen. We managed to change certain laws, but it takes. This may be part of the value that we bring, coming from other countries, but having roots here, that we don't take things for granted, and we have changed certain laws for the better, like on nature conservation, in the introduction of the Natura 2000 European programs into Czech law in the early 2000s, or now we are trying to improve the forestry law. There are millions such examples of things that need to change. So this resignation in front of the state is something that dissatisfies me. Another thing is that I think we still need to work on ourselves is our relationship to foreigners. Because as a nation, we are a small nation. And in terms of nation state, fairly recent, with a lot of our history being under foreign dictatorship and not freedom and autonomy, we are still not totally sure that we have the ability and the right to exist as a nation state. It's not my opinion, I refer to, for example, the work of Milan Kundera, his speech in June 67 to the conference of writers, and then the little book he wrote, which is wonderful, it's a must-read, Kidnapped Western World, I think the English translation is, I'm not sure, that he wrote in 83, if I recall, that talks about that. We're still uncertain of ourselves. As any nation, we have a narrative. Part of it is a myth, part of it is reality. As any nation, we have beautiful things we've done and sins we have committed, and we're not completely reconciled with our own past, and therefore we are not completely comfortable with somebody who comes from the outside. I'm referring in particular to the issue of our relationship to Germany and the German language. I'm French. I have the same problem with Germans, cool down.
As we were actually coming here together with my colleagues, I mentioned to them that my great-grandmother was German-speaking, and she was from Karlov, not far from here.
Yes.
Why I mention that, we have this heritage and we have this past where German-speaking Czechs basically were here for many, many centuries. Mm-hmm. And the Czechoslovak state expelled them. Mm-hmm. Do you think this kind of damage can ever be kind of compensated for by the Czech state?
No. You cannot compensate for the past. I think that word is very dangerous. Secondly, you can't change the past. You can't change the past. So, let's face it. Let's look forward and build Europe. Let's build on our national genie, which is the art of living together. If you look at the Kinský Palace on the Old Town Square in Prague, I love this place because it's, to me, symbolic of the true value of this country. It was built by a Czech family. On the ground floor, Kafka's father was Jewish, German speaker, was selling umbrellas. And on the first floor, at one point, there was a German-speaking school for bureaucrats. So you had Czech, Jewish, German in the same place. And if you add that, if we are loyal to those three roots, and if we build on them in an open way, and we send our artists to Montmartre, this is the best moment of our history. That's what happened between the two world wars. That's what we need. Know ourselves, cultivate all our roots, not only the Czech roots, all our roots, and be open to the rest of the world and be creative.
I think that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome, and do come. We welcome you here. Yeah. Lots of things to see, lots of things to do, lots of new projects.
Let me just ask you one more thing. Have you ever met Milan Kundera in Paris?
I think so, but I was very young. So I don't have... I remember Pavel Tigrid, I remember a couple of Charta 77 signatories, like Vladislav. I remember something about Kundera, but it's typical of everybody, or every genius, that you're never a prophet in your own country. He's better known and more respected in France, and generally speaking in the West, outside of Czech Republic, than inside the Czech Republic. But my favorite is not Kundera. I love Kundera. My favorite is Hrabal. That's, to me, one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. Greatest. Must read. Bohumil Hrabal.
Thank you.
Take care.